Yeah, ignore that, I guess.
Whatever. Okay.
Yeah, we're live.
I'm just about to record. There we go. Welcome to Legalized Robbery, Jerry. And I'm here with the one and only Romanian stallion, Adi, Adrian. And we are discussing the following topics today. The Bitcoin Maxi argument that we had in our previous podcast. Check that out if you haven't yet. And where the best use cases for Bitcoin currently. And then also the Biogen Alzheimer's drug announcement last week. Aging populations across the Western world and how that will impact inflation and other spending. And also smart contracts, namely Chainlink. And yeah, Adrian, where do you want to kick this off? How has your day been? How about that? How's your day been?
It could have been better, but it wasn't bad. Like
Yeah.
it got better as the day progressed, so it's all good. So I think this is like the max of it, and then probably I'm gonna go to sleep and it's gonna cool down a bit. So,
Right.
but yeah, all in all, it wasn't a bad day. Actually, I got in some work done today, so that's always good. Yeah. How about you?
My day was pretty cool. It was the warmest day in London for a long time. I think it's like almost like 30 Celsius or something. And
yeah, that's hot.
We went to some kind of gig outside where like some jazz band was playing. Obviously, social distancing rules were being respected. I don't want Boris knocking at my door. Other than that, I had a few drinks, some good food, and yeah, now I'm here with you, discussing Bitcoin and all the lovely things.
This is probably the best way to end your day, isn't it?
Right?
Yeah.
So let's jump right into it, because I think you wanted to discuss the Bitcoin Lightning Network, Square adoption in emerging markets, and so forth. What's your thoughts on that?
Okay, so first off, while we have been speaking about this before a lot of times, and you were always a bit more on the pro side and I was on the con side, I haven't actually taken the time to properly study it from the perspective of actually going in a bit more and researching what everything was about. So I was like, okay, so I had a vague idea what Lightning Network was supposed to do, but I wasn't 100% clear on it. And I did like a couple of hours of due diligence on it. And yeah, and same thing with Taproot. And then a bit I explored the use case with Square and what their plan is. So I have some views on that. One sec. Okay, so I'll start with Lightning Network. So the thing with Lightning Network is probably everybody heard that it's supposed to make Bitcoin faster. The question is how? Like in the whole context of cryptocurrencies, you have a block size, you have confirmations that need to be made, you have miners that do complex mathematical operations. So in the whole scheme of things, the question is, okay, how do you speed things up? Like Vitalik was also talking about this on the Lex Friedman podcast, and he was talking about what Ethereum solutions were. And surprise, surprise, Bitcoin solutions, like in this case, Lightning Network, are similar, but they're different in the long term. So Vitalik was saying that layer 2 solutions, and for those people who don't know what layer 2 solutions mean is basically having solutions on top of the existing chain, basically to augment it rather than trying to implement everything into the original chain. So basically, what Lightning Network is, it's a layer 2 solution. So basically it's going to be an external solution to the original Bitcoin chain, in which you can have like transactions between entities without always confirming the transaction on the blockchain, but rather keeping a channel open between entities. And one of the examples I've seen was, for example, buying coffee, because that's a daily reoccurring payment. You have a channel with your coffee shop, and basically you go to your coffee shop, you spend whatever $2 or $3 on it, and instead of confirming that transaction on the blockchain on the spot, you basically share a wallet with them, which is a multi-signature wallet, meaning that you can both access it, and it's not like you both have control over it, but you can both access it. And
Right.
how the thing works is, I say I'm putting zero point 0.5 Bitcoin there, right, for me to buy coffee, and each day the coffee shop logs a transaction in that wallet, which basically says that the allocation of the funds will be a bit different, and they're going to get a bit more of my Bitcoin, I'm going to get a bit less of my Bitcoin, or whatever the initial amount deposited, which basically means that there's going to be a shared wallet with two owners, each having a quantity of Bitcoin, and as time goes by, either one or the other gets more or less Bitcoin, in the sense that, for example, if the coffee shop were to give me a refund, I would give some Bitcoin back. It's basically like a continuous stream of transactions, and that stream basically ends when the channel is closed. So I can allocate zero point 0.5 Bitcoin there. Let's say hypothetically I can buy 5 coffees with them. I will do 5 transactions in that wallet, so nothing to do with the main Bitcoin network. And then once that's done, we confirm the sending of the whole amount of Bitcoin from one entity to the other. So
Yes.
I haven't looked. There were some numbers being thrown around, like 65,000. No, I think maybe like 65,000 transactions per second. If this were to be adopted, it's not that relevant. The point is, it would be much faster. It's a good solution, but like I said initially, it is a layer 2 solutions, which means you would need another external chain to use this. And although, even like Vitalik said in his podcast, it borrows some of the security from the original chain, it's not 100% the same security.
Yeah.
The good thing about the Lightning Network is that it's shared across some other networks. Like I think Litecoin can also use it, so that's good. Which means
Okay, I
that
didn't
if
know that.
yeah. Well, not this. I don't think it's the same one. It might be the same one. It might have cross-chain compatibility, but to be honest, I haven't dug that deep. But
Okay, but
this is
let's just
yeah.
let's
Go
just take one moment here, just to recap it for
yeah.
listeners that might be new to this. So in
Okay.
terms of the explanation that you just gave, a simple way to look at it is our current financial system. When you go to Starbucks and buy something, right? Oftentimes you will, any shop, Starbucks is just a hypothetical example here, but any shop you buy something at, oftentimes the payment doesn't clear immediately, and that's why when you look on your banking app, it has a lot of pending payments, but your balance will show that the money was taken out, so to say. But the date at which it clears is at a later point. So you have to imagine Bitcoin Lightning Network is trying to mimic this in a slightly different way. So you can't compare it, one to one, but it does allow you to sort of log a lot of payments and then clear them once the wallet is closed, like you said.
Mhm.
And this allows for more payments to be made quicker. And it's a layer 2 solution, meaning that it's a layer that is put on top of Bitcoin to make it work. And that's basically what that is in, really, really straightforward sort of explanation. So just to give people who don't have any previous sort of knowledge of this, a rough explanation of how that works. But
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah, no, basically that was it. So this was more about me trying to read up on it and see how it works. So like sort of like it's not necessarily positives or negatives. My thoughts on it are, it seems like a good solution, although I haven't explored why. Well, I mean, it's kind of obvious it won't have the same security, because potentially, theoretically, in that stream of data, it's probably easier to get unwanted access rather than having unwanted access on the main Bitcoin network. So that's the vulnerability. There's definitely a vulnerability. So it isn't as secure as things get moved around. But it doesn't seem bad. Like, it seems like a good solution. And there's another thing. The whole reason why it's called Lightning Network is because actually, if I don't have the funds, but you have the funds, and we want to give money to the same coffee shop, apparently, if I have an open channel with you and you have an open channel with the coffee shop, it's like my transaction would go through your channel to the coffee shop. So it would be like the branches of a lightning. I guess that's the origin of the name. So meaning that not every entity would have to have channels opened to every other entity, because that would be crazy. That would be actually a complicated mess. Like, that would make the Lightning network itself have even bigger overhead. But this way, this is like a programming optimization, root optimization problem, which is slightly easier to handle in the way that basically, for example, the network will look at my node and see like, okay, who does Adi have a connection with? Okay, this guy. Do they have a root to that entity? And if they do, it's gonna go through them, through their active channel. So that's kind of smart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The next thing I read up on was Taproot. And honestly, Taproot was a bit more complex and a bit more complicated. But it was also super interesting. I learned a lot about it. And basically, Taproot is the precursor to Lightning Network purely from the fact that it's the way it allows for multi-signatures wallets, from what I understand, and SegWit, which is segregated witnesses, which is some other stuff. Taproot is super interesting. What it does, basically, it encapsulates transactions to generate a transaction reference that cannot be traced to the origin and can actually be a mixture of smart contracts and other types of settlements. So basically, Taproot is, and like the end result, the end transaction is basically similar to what you would have previously in Bitcoin. So to the network, it all seems the same, although one could have super complex functionality behind it, and the other one could be just a simple settlement. So Taproot would also allow more complex actions on the network and smart contracts, while also encapsulating some of those into from multiple processes. So you won't have a transaction for a smart contract. You can probably fulfill multiple smart contracts in a single transaction and then only publish that one. So that's super good. And also it has increased anonymity, because since it's not one account in, one account out, basically this is the anonymity dream of Bitcoin, because you won't know who generated what with what processes. Now, I haven't dug deep enough here also to understand why Edward Snowden said this is one of the biggest privacy concerns of Bitcoin, because he says there's way for people to actually make this much easier to hack rather than the initial algorithm provided by Satoshi for Bitcoin.
He's also a big proponent of Zcash or Zcash, whatever you want to call it. So anyone that wants to look into that, it's a more private sort of coin, and in many ways, to some people, it's a better alternative to Bitcoin. But yeah, that's another discussion. But yeah, check out Zcash.
Or Monero.
Or Monero, yeah. Or Fyro.
I haven't heard about that one.
Yes, so Fyro, Zcash, and Monero. If anybody wants to check out very private coins with good fundamentals.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The last point I want to touch here on is the whole thing with Jack Dorsey and Cash App. So after our talk, I did a bit of research about that as well. And yeah, first off, I found out that Cash App only accepts Bitcoin, which was a huge surprise to me because initially when I heard about it, I understood cryptocurrencies in general, but apparently it's just Bitcoin, which is surprising because, for example, Robinhood, PayPal, and even some other like investment, semi transaction platforms, they accept multiple currencies. For example, PayPal accepts Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and Bitcoin Cash. So from that perspective, Jack Dorsey took a very, very like resolute stance. Like he's promoting Bitcoin,
Yes.
and the interesting thing about it is he was interested in Africa way before. Well, I mean, not necessarily way before, but before he started working with Bitcoin and trying to adopt Bitcoin. So Africa presented a lot of interest to him before this, but now he's focusing this whole adoption on Africa. But like you mentioned, this won't work without Lightning Network, and even with Lightning
Right.
Network and maybe Taproot, it won't have a use case there because nobody's gonna wait there half an hour or have like a $10 transaction fee. So you need these two. Well, I think you probably need Lightning Network more than Taproot. But if you want to do some smart contracts and maybe some other stuff, some anonymity stuff as well, you need Taproot as well.
Yes.
And what's interesting, after we talk, I explored which were the top 10 most Bitcoin maximalist countries. And I have the list here, and it goes like this: Kenya, Brazil, Chile, Ecuador, Nigeria, South Africa, Argentina, Germany, Morocco, and Poland. A lot of those are in Africa.
Thank you.
So yeah, well, it's if you ask me, it's interesting. But in a close second spot, actually, one of the currencies which is closer to that is XRP. Just like I mentioned the other time, like people are looking at XRP. Like it's top three after Bitcoin and Ethereum. It's XRP, even in those African countries. So it's not bad. It's all I'm saying is, yeah, they're super popular there, and like you said, most people know about Bitcoin, but the second or third one they know about is XRP, which is purely a transactional coin. So that's interesting. So
Um, Hold on.
yeah,
Let me interject here, though, because you keep
go.
mentioning XRP without no sort of context. XRP is a sort of mainstream solution for currency transaction, right? But
Yeah,
the problem with XRP is that they're currently being investigated by the SEC, and it's the largest investigation of any coin so far. So I would be hesitant to claim that XRP is, a coin to be investing in, especially if the founders. I think the founder tried to. I think he tried to get 1 billion out of the company, and then the people in the company sued him. So you have to imagine the kind of clusterfuck that's going on at that company. So while XRP is very fast, like you mentioned, it's very superior in many ways to Bitcoin if you compared it just based on those sort of basic things, as in speed and transaction volumes and so forth. But if you looked at the sort of list of offenses that these guys have been gathering, I wouldn't touch it with a pole. So just as caveat there.
again, nobody mentioned anything about investing in them, in one of them or
Okay.
another of them, but rather
Yeah.
using them as transactional. And
Yeah. I just
I
wanted to
think,
add that for anybody
yeah,
that
sure,
would.
but using it as transaction, I don't think there's any risk involved in actually using any of them as transaction. But XRP would be faster, cheaper, and you wouldn't have the same problems. But yeah, that was my point basically. This is what I read up on. I will agree now that my view is a bit more complex. I understand the potential of Bitcoin, which is nice, but I I read up there was some a bit of a complicated aspect regarding the adoption of Lightning Network and Taproot. Like they couldn't decide. Almost everybody was agreeing with the implementation, but they had some issues with deciding when to start using it, how to start using it, how to vote for it. So it it kind of also gave me the vibe I was telling you about regarding having not having a leader, so yeah, I still get that feeling, but probably maybe this is one of the roles actually Jack Dorsey is trying to fill. Maybe this is one of the roles he might try to give it some scope, some direction. Yeah.
This is what I was trying to explain. So that's a good
Hmm.
segue actually. That
Yeah.
even though Bitcoin doesn't have a leader, you could say the most high profile person that sort of Bitcoin has on its side with all of the peripherals and all of the sort of influence and track record is Jack Dorsey. Jack Dorsey owns Twitter, which is
Yeah.
arguably the most actively used. This is not a fact. I'm just assuming that it's the most actively used social media platform, um, as well as people engage the most on there. You have all this cancel culture. I mean, a lot of things are dictated on Twitter before they sort of bleed into the mainstream. So Twitter dictates a lot of culture in a way that no other social media platform really does like that. And
Hmm.
and also Jack Dorsey is the CEO of Square, and Square is really interesting in that it's like a neobank. And I think my hello, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay, okay. The sound went quiet then. Um, so I was saying Square is a sort of neobank because they have all of these smart solutions. I think I mentioned it in the previous podcast. They have all of these smart solutions to lending money, having companies attach their API to their system so they can give out automated loans when
Hmm.
they see that a company is making such and such amount of profit. They have very intricate ways of keeping track with the companies that they're working with that original banks don't. In original banks, they have to wait for a business to approach them about a loan.
Yeah.
Square does this automatically, and it's
Hmm.
it's it's automated in their system. So this brings them at an incredible advantage, and they're onboarding way quicker than traditional banks are doing. And lastly, and which is why I mentioned Square, um,
Sorry,
is also. Go ahead.
let me just get one more bit of information here, which was super
Sure.
interesting regarding what I was saying initially. I forgot to mention this point. Jack Dorsey was saying that one of the reasons he's focusing on Africa is obviously banking the unbanked, and he's saying he experienced super big difficulties to try to enlist as a bank there. So basically,
Hmm.
it's not necessarily that he wanted to adopt Bitcoin or cryptocurrency because, let's just say, he wanted to. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But the point is, he tried to go the traditional bank route, and it
Yes,
it wasn't working out.
it was working.
Like he
Yeah,
said, yeah, he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it, or
yeah,
it was incredibly hard or long.
yeah.
So I just wanted to get that in there as well. This is also motivation for him.
No, that's a great point, and it goes to show that he doesn't. He's not just. He doesn't work backwards. It's not like he likes Bitcoin and therefore he wants it to be used in Africa. It was more like he was trying to get shit done in Africa, but he was hitting so many hurdles. He has to use Bitcoin or some kind of coin to
Exactly,
get
exactly. It's
to get there.
it's yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So what's interesting, just to summarize my point here, is that Jack Dorsey's the CEO of both Twitter and Square, and having one a social media platform and two a sort of neo bank um, in your control, and having also Square owns Cash App, right?
Yeah.
Having all of those things together would be an incredible bullish signal for Bitcoin because he would be sort of the single most influential person with all of the tools um, needed to make Bitcoin sort of mainstream. And I think he mentioned in that talk that he was looking to create a was it a cold storage wallet for Bitcoin? Yeah, from
hardware
Square.
wallet.
Hardware wallet, yes. He was creating a hardware wallet for Square. For Bitcoin at Square, and they're trying to get it to 100 million people. So when you see that the CEO of Twitter and both Twitter and Square is looking to make mainstream adoption of Bitcoin a thing, you should probably be paying attention. And this gets me to the next thing, because you mentioned earlier about the countries that are most a fan of Bitcoin, or how we call it, Bitcoin Maxis, which is just a short word for saying Bitcoin
It's just funny.
Yeah.
Bitcoin Maxi sounds fun.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So when people ask where's the best use case for Bitcoin, because obviously in the West we have a pretty, fast transaction systems, and Bitcoin is taking too long currently. And like you mentioned before, Taproot is a step in solving that direction, and then eventually you'll have Lightning Network solving that problem. So people ask, like, where could be a place where Bitcoin would still, even with its downsides, be useful? And the number one place outside of America is Nigeria. Nigeria currently has about 15% inflation rate. Okay, so that's almost 3 times as much as in the U.S. They have immense political instability right now, due to some of the politicians sending, police and military fractions at people, at protests and so forth. So there's a lot of political instability in that region, and Nigeria therefore has the fastest adoption rate of Bitcoin outside of the US. And I think this is something that a lot of people are missing, and that's why it's important to mention that a lot of the use cases for Bitcoin, a lot of the bullish signals for Bitcoin are outside of where we are. So you have to sort of look at the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is that there's countries that have immense political instability, and they gain the most from the use of Bitcoin. In recent times, Nigeria has banned both Twitter and BTC. And I think Twitter is still banned in Nigeria. So you just have to imagine all of the forces that are sort of moving against the people there, yet Bitcoin is still trading at a premium in Nigeria. I don't know the exact number right now, but it's a very high premium. And so to summarize my point, the best use cases for Bitcoin are pretty much all emerging markets, and namely Nigeria. Twitter opened up, I think, a headquarters in Ghana. So Ghana also is very high up in the Bitcoin adoption rate. And you also have Venezuela. I'm not sure, does Venezuela class as emerging market?
It must.
Yeah, probably. And as Venezuela, most people probably know they've had a lot of issues there. The central bank also ran the currency into the ground, so to say, and there's a lot of turmoil. And Bitcoin, again, is highly used. So I would encourage all the viewers and listeners to maybe look for, when thinking about use cases for Bitcoin, and doing your sort of financial analysis, to consider places where Bitcoin could be used outside of the West, so America and all of Europe and so forth.
Yeah.
And a really cool documentary, actually, that I would recommend people be on the Coinbase. I think on the Instagram page they posted something about Botswana use, Coinbase use in Botswana, which is really interesting. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'd say check that out. Do you have anything on that?
What exactly?
The use cases in emerging markets for crypto.
Well, I mean, the whole thing itself is like the whole market itself is a use case from my point of view. Like, for example, the whole, I know at this point banking the unbanked is like a buzzword, but it's true. Like, people there, they don't have bank accounts. Like, they don't have bank accounts. Some of them, probably the closest thing they have to a bank account is a digital identity. So from that perspective, the whole idea in itself is the use case. Like, emerging markets are the use case. It's probably, we had this argument on, I mean, I had this argument on multiple groups. What's easier, to teach people to use technology or get a bank? Like, the whole thing with banks is, you, for example, the bank encapsulates the financial processes you just use, but you don't understand what's going on there. Like, it's not like I understand everything the bank does behind closed doors. From that perspective, I don't think it's harder to understand cryptos or Bitcoin or having a digital bank on your phone. I don't think it's much complicated than a normal bank. Like, even for a normal bank,
Right.
you still need to go to a bank, sign some contracts, understand some rates, do a lot of stuff, confirm your identity. So it's not, the process isn't harder in cryptos. It's either a bit more simpler or similar. And the thing is, people would say, okay, but what about credit card penetration, or like in general use of smartphone and technologies? And the thing is, people are adopting. Like, there's a lot of smartphone usage is super high in Africa. Like, I was doing
Yes.
some research, I think, on Jumia regarding their business case, and a lot of people have more access to smartphones than laptops or desktops. So from that
Absolutely.
perspective, Africa is leapfrogging this step in, like, the the evolution of devices. They're
But even
leapfrogging the desktop and they're going straight to the smartphone. So why
think
not
about
would, yeah.
think about our generation. Think about us right now. Like, who is using landlines unless it's at work? So
Yeah,
there's similarities there, and there's things to be learned even from emerging markets like Africa leapfrogging
exactly.
landlines.
Exactly.
Yeah, but go
Exactly.
ahead.
No, that this was the whole point. Like, again, it is a buzzword, but it's true. And like, the trends point in that direction. Like, they are, for example, I was doing a bit of research on Jumia, and Jumia does a lot of stuff. They also have their their transaction processing arm specifically for this thing, and it's mobile centric from what I understood. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's
just
definitely a case.
just some context for the viewers as well. Jumia is
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
is the African Amazon, so to say,
a
and
bit
mhm.
a bit less of a value play. So in the sense that it's a bit overvalued, but
Yes,
obviously the potential is there, and they are kind of vertically integrated like Amazon. So they have the e-commerce, they have peer-to-peer sales, which is like me selling to another person online, like eBay, right? They have food delivery, they have delivery in general, and they have payments. So they're trying to vertically integrate the whole business and then outsource those parts to other e-commerce players. Yeah, sorry, I
yeah.
had
No,
good
that was good.
context call because I was, yeah. I assume people
See, I
knew
got
about
you.
Jumia, but yeah,
Yeah,
probably not everybody knows about Jumia.
I did the assist. You know,
Yeah, thanks, thanks.
the assist before you do the dunk. You know.
Exactly. Cool.
Yeah, so Jumia, Jumia being like the African Amazon, it has a lot of solutions, like you said. In particular, I think just being able to adjust their prices for the people to afford in Africa, because while most would assume, and most would assume correctly probably, that sort of disposable income is very low in Africa, you do have, you could probably say, okay, there's 1 or 2 billion people or whatever, right? But you can calculate that they would at least spend a day. $1 a day in a year is, for 2 billion people is quite a lot of money, right? So
Hmm.
knowing how to price things correctly for these people to then purchase things online. If you have sort of investors that are in it for the long run, they will pump up or pump in enough money for them to set sort of prices that they will run at. I'm not even sure what the word is. You might have to help me here. But when you're running profit without profit for maybe 20 years, like Amazon did, and you did this to get market share, is there a specific word for that?
I don't think so. They're just basically grabbing market share through debt.
Basically, yeah.
But I don't think
exactly.
there's a specific word for it or anything like that.
Yeah.
No.
But you would need an investor that is willing to take the ride for that long without seeing profit at the company. And that's essentially the Jumia play. So you have to be aware that they're far from being a profitable company, and also the market that they're trying to reach doesn't have that much disposable income. So they have to price it in such a way where people are able to afford it, and that in a long enough timeline, they will recoup and be in profit massively, actually, as the infrastructure in Africa is all being built out, and projects are being built and stuff. So yeah, keep an eye on Jumia. That was good.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't planning on touching on Jumia, but I think that's a good mention.
Jumia was one of the most interesting stocks I came across because the name is okay. The name is good, the Amazon of Africa, but truly it is kind of like the Amazon of Africa.
Unique.
It is vertically integrated. They're trying to do all the business units and then outsource the specific services to other companies. They are running on credit in order to get market size, and they're eventually gonna be profitable. And if not, then the question is who. And I don't think there's any other publicly traded companies who are running that game. I think the other one is Alibaba. I think Alibaba is doing a lot of business in Africa, and I have some Alibaba as well, so I'm covered.
Yeah, I mean, it goes without saying that the Chinese presence in Africa is very very established. So so the fintech space is also very interesting. And I think I'm looking out for a few. I think Stripe has partnered with a fintech company called Paxful, and they are doing incredible work down there. And if they keep going like that, they could be the Stripe of Africa. So check that out, Paxful.
Nice.
If they have an IPO, I'm definitely on it.
Yeah, it's not public, I assume. So
yeah. So you wanted to talk about Biogen. What? Obviously, we know that they did an announcement that they have a new Alzheimer drug. I think the stock shot up to 70% after the news came out. Fortunately, I was holding Biogen, not a huge bag, but a decent bag, and I sold my profit and had a nice weekend. So you touch on.
Yeah, I'll touch a bit about it because the guys from the All In Pod mentioned it, and obviously I'm a huge fan. I know you are as well. I guess most people who watch financial podcasts are as well. They're basically like four guys who all of them have financial experience. All of them are rich, but some are richer than the others, and all of them have knowledge in certain fields. The All In Pod. Okay. And they touched on this subject, and it actually connected to another thing I was researching recently, and I was like, okay, this is a good connection, but I'll get there as I go through. So the whole thing regarding that was that Biogen came out with an Alzheimer drug. Well, the story is a bit longer. They have been doing trials for the past, I think, 3 or 4 years. They initially scrapped the project, I think in 2018 or 19, because they didn't have results. But then they came back upon it, and they were like, oh, wait, we found the use case in which it actually has some results. But even those results, I think, and the guys also thought the same, are like pretty watered down. Like they said that in the disease progresses 20% slower. I was like, okay, that's good, but 20% slower disease progression isn't by any means a landslide. Yeah, like I was looking at some other companies who have an Alzheimer drug who, at least in the current trials it's in, it's at least stopping the progression of Alzheimer's and has shown signs of reducing the damage it has already done. So I'm like, oh, dude, this one is a much better alternative, right? But nonetheless, this
I
drug got
think
accepted by the FDA. Yeah,
I think okay. I think that's the huge part because for something to be accepted by the FDA, it has to go through a lot of hurdles. So we might not have the full picture
but
of the situation. But I think what people want to hear is tickers. So who are those tickers? Who are those companies that have products that stop Alzheimer's? I think that's what people want to hear.
one second, let me just grab it. Didn't have this prepared, but I'll look it up and I'll be back in a sec. But yeah,
we can move on to the next.
Okay,
sorry, go ahead.
the ticker is Sava, and it's from Cassava Sciences, and they had some early trials which it showed that their drug reduces, stops, and has shown sign of reducing Alzheimer disease. And why this was personally important for me is because my grandfather also had Alzheimer's before he died. Well, he had a lot of other stuff, but the point is, like, I might have it when I get older, so I'm keeping a close eye on this. Okay, going back to the big subject. So the whole thing with the FDA was they have an advisory board where doctors and people who are clinicians are asked, okay, should we approve this? And that board decided, no, you should not approve this. Like, the benefits are minimal, but still the FDA decided to go through with the approval. So it's in the market now. This is it's a super complicated issue because, first off, its efficacy isn't that great. You had an advisory board who said, yeah, maybe don't approve it. And another aspect is the price. It cost $55,000 per year. And Friedberg, one of the guys from one of the guys from the podcast, he says that in itself, the antigens themselves to produce, they cost like $5. Of course, it's never gonna be of course it's never gonna be like, what's the cost to produce and then what's the cost to sell. There's always like multiple things involved. But he said usually the way pricing works for drugs is they think what would be the cost to carry the disease, and then they backtrack that and calculate the price of a drug. And I'm like, really? Well, that's super interesting because, yeah, obviously Alzheimer's would be super hard to carry because you either need to care for somebody, like if it's a parent yourself, or take him to a senior house, right? So
the cost of that
is super big, man. And they were talking also about the implications of socialism versus capitalism. Because think about it, like if it's 55,000 and you want to pay for it because you have the money and you want to do it, that's fine. But when it's socialism and you'll have a continuously aging population and you have to actually put everybody on this, because actually after a certain age the odds of getting Alzheimer's, it's super big. It's like, I think it increases like fourfold every 10 years or something like that. I heard some statistics regarding that. 1 second, I have a study here. So currently 6 million Americans have Alzheimer's, and until 2050, 16 million are projected to also have it. So if you multiply that by the 55,000, and if you think that's supported by the government through the various Medicare programs, that's going to be a huge cost for the system. So this is super interesting. Like, I think the discussion of capitalism versus socialism here is super important, because I don't think these producers would be pricing this product at this price if they knew the governments wouldn't have to pay for it, because the price tag is immense. Like, there's probably hundreds, maybe thousands of individuals in the US who could actually afford this, right? It's like a few thousand each month. That's kind of crazy, man. Like, that's not a light cost to carry. So
That's
yeah,
interesting because
I have
given that
another
such.
angle, but
Go ahead.
yeah, give me your opinion on this, and then I'll go to the other angle.
Yeah, what's so interesting about this is that given that this is such a disease that is so widely spread, you would think that there would be some kind of mandate that would allow it to not be sold at extortionate prices. But I think that's just where the pharma industry is at right now, especially in America, where you do have to sell them at these prices, because if they don't do it, then somebody else is going to do it, basically. So you have this problem, and I'm a proponent of the free market, and people being able to set their prices, and then the market sort of corrects itself. But sometimes these stories, they make you think like, okay, maybe the market shouldn't be so free, because it's like chickens, headless chickens running around, and 55,000 a year for that it's not feasible for any any even upper middle class person.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
that's
not
how much
cheap.
people. That's what people earn a year.
Yeah, exactly.
Never mind the medical bill. So yeah, I guess the hope is either that the government will do something about that once it's live, or the market corrects it via disruptor coming in and offering it at a extremely lower price. So this is obviously not sustainable to have a drug cost 55,000. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Go ahead.
Well, I have like two or three bits of information, but one of them is there's an entity in the US called the Institute for Clinical and Economic Review, which is basically a drug pricing research group. They
Right.
said that at the current efficacy rate of 20% slower of Alzheimer's progression, this drug should cost around 8,000 a year. And if it goes to the best case scenario from their trial results, that's still like 23,000 a year. So
Mhm.
even like drug pricing research companies are saying this is way too much. Like at this point, it's like scalping. This is not fair pricing based on the
Yeah.
results you're producing. And again, this is probably some statistical stuff, which the guys they're probably economists and doctors who are doing these reviews, and they're like, this is way too expensive. Like even best case, it's twice the price. Worst case, it's like 5, 6, 7 times the price.
Yeah.
So that's a bit unacceptable, if you ask me.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I agree. I, it's hard to, argue anything. It's hard to argue the other side. I guess the only way you can argue the other side is that I think they are potentially the first to get that approved by the FDA, and they know that they'll. It's almost like eating everything on the table before anybody can take it, so to say. They'll run with it
Yeah.
as long as they can until the government either pushes for the prices to be lowered, or there's a competitor that will then offer a cheaper product.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just how the market works, and yeah, it's a tough one. I
It is.
wouldn't, yeah, I wouldn't know where to stand with that. And obviously, us being from Europe, we have probably quite a different view um, of how medical bills are structured and so forth. I don't think you could. I don't think that would even be legal here. So yeah.
I don't know. I have some statistics prepared for this. So I was doing some research, and I took some information from some government agency in the US. And
Yeah. Can you show
basically,
it?
no, it's
Okay.
textual.
Okay.
It wouldn't have
Okay. Okay.
made a lot of sense. Uh, in the 65 to 74 age group, basically people's annual average spending on medicine is $5,000. So this would be 10 times the average.
Wow.
So not a lot of people would afford this.
No.
And even this $5,000, it's on a basis of, it's like 15% of their income at that age.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so that's, I think their income is like 60,000, which means that basically if they would want to take this drug as well, if they would take it out of pocket, they would have to spend all the money they're generating at that age. So it's insane. I'm just trying to formulate how insane the price tag is if it's not
Yeah.
subsidized. And if it's subsidized, it's basically not one person paying for it, but all of us, which doesn't necessarily make it better for the system. It makes it slightly better for the individual, but still the price tag is insane.
It's enormous.
And the last
Give
link,
me 1 sec.
which,
I need
yeah,
actually go through the stat. I just need to turn my light on just so I don't.
okay, yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it. The other interesting aspect here was the fact that I was doing some research regarding inflation. Yeah, it's one of the things I like researching. And there's this guy. His name is Patrick Boyle, and he's an author and he's a economics teacher in basically in England and at multiple universities in London. And he's pretty insightful. He also runs a hedge fund. He has a YouTube channel. He usually provides like finance articles and like videos, but they're super, I wouldn't say ideological, but they have concentrated knowledge from the perspective that it's not about individual stock analysis, but rather market trends. And he was talking to a guy, which is named Pradhan, and he was talking about aging population. And he was saying that current world demographics, the average population of the world is slightly getting older as we go. So basically, we're going to have inflation caused by having less people in the workplace, more people being old, more people spending money on what old people spend money on. So, like this thing with the Alzheimer's, it's not going to stop. Like, we're probably going to have increasingly more drugs which are focused on some, let's say, the older stage of life, purely from the fact that those are the people who will have the money and they might drive up inflation, not only in this industry, but basically any industry that is, let's say, in their spending bracket. So I thought this was interesting. So this whole combination of having socialized medicine, and which obviously America is the worst example for socialized medicine, but for example, you could look at European countries, aging population, price inflation in the services and products they use, means that if we don't have enough competition in this field, it's gonna be real bad, because we'll have aging population with medical needs. That aging population actually has more money than the younger ones because they accumulated as they were getting older. They have more medical needs. They will buy drugs, but we need to be able to produce better drugs, cheaper drugs that will actually solve those problems.
What kind of drugs? Like marijuana?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Like I heard it helps with some Alzheimer's symptoms, but I'm not sure though. Maybe psychedelics. Apparently, there's a strong run in psychedelics in utilization in medicine of psychedelics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Old people love psychedelics.
Yeah. Well,
they used to be hippies, right? Hippies in the 80s.
Oh, dude. I heard the best joke regarding Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. He's like, he's gonna go on the rocket because he cannot get it up otherwise. Regarding his conflict with Elon Musk, because they're always like in conflict.
Can't get it up
faster, and Bezos has to be on the rocket in order for him to get it up. So
somebody said something really crazy, like Jeff Bezos is going to try and fake his death with that rocket, and then sort of go, like cosmetic surgery and then go underground anonymous.
That's
That would be.
definitely the play.
Would that not be an incredible film? That would be an
But
amazing film.
his problem is that most of his wealth is actually in Amazon stock. So
yeah, so you would
need
see
to
if he sold it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If he had some Bitcoin, though.
Oh shit! What if he's one of the new whales, man? You never know. There's a Dogecoin whale that is holding 25 billion. Is it Dogecoin? Is it 25 billion Dogecoin or 25 billion US dollars in Dogecoin? Either one, but he's like a huge whale, and he sold 420.69.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And people thought it was Elon Musk. So
yeah, who knows, man? Who knows? I think 2021 has came with a lot of surprises, so I wouldn't be too surprised if a Dogecoin whale turned out to be Elon. Who knows?
It would explain a lot of stuff,
right?
Yeah.
All right, so are you all covered in terms of the aging population?
Yeah. I think the links are interesting there. I think the links are interesting there.
That I didn't actually think about it in that way. I knew that, especially in Western. But here's the thing. Here's a interesting.
It's not just Western. It's happening all over the place. Yeah,
I wouldn't be so sure about that.
Okay, emerging market have it not as bad, but it's still the trend there as well. It's definitely a trend, for example, in China and India.
Yes, but let me tell you the trend in Africa is that by 2030 or something like that, half of the continent is going to be young people, and they're doubling. It's the only continent on Earth that has climbing birth rates. Every other place is declining birth rates. Obviously, we know that there's multiple reasons why there's higher birth rates in Africa. Obviously, contraception, education in some parts, and also I think there's a lot of this idea that, especially in emerging markets, a lot of the population have children because the environment is so rough that your child might die. So you have a lot of kids to make sure that one is gonna make it, so to say. It's just kind of fucked up, actually.
It's kind of horrible, but
yeah. But what's interesting about Africa in that aspect is that you have half of a population that will have a very youthful spirit to it. Yep. You think about it, like if everybody's under or around the age of 18 and it's half of a continent, I don't even know what that is going to look like. You know what I mean? Yeah. And just in general, it would be interesting to see how that will play out with a aging Europe. People are getting older here. I'm in London. Sorry for the the cars. But I'm interested to see how it will play out. Having an aging population in Europe and a incredibly young and viral population in Africa, and so I think I'm not even sure where to categorize that in, because there'll be a lot of companies interested in emerging markets like Africa, but also there have to be a lot of companies that have to focus on the aging population in Europe, right?
Yeah, I mean, dude, usually how it goes is it follows the money. And as Africa, it is gonna get richer and it's gonna have some wealth, and that's obviously gonna grow. I think it's gonna take time until that wealth moves there. And usually after that wealth moves there, they'll basically have the same trends we have. Like,
yeah, true.
That's how you that's just how that's how wealthy countries develop. They just have lower birth rates. They invest more into one or two children. It's just the pattern of developed countries. So it's either or. It's not the odds of them being emerging market that is super rich and has high birth rate is kind of small. But I guess we'll see with maybe with some crypto adoption. Maybe it can fix some of that. Maybe.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. So the same way that we were talking about Africa leapfrogging landlines and having cell phones, with a lot of people having like multiple cell phones even in Africa, you'd be really surprised how it works there.
Yeah.
So with a lot of people leapfrogging things there, maybe they will leapfrog banks, and they will do this
they
via
will.
crypto.
They
Exactly.
will. They will definitely will.
And David Sachs had this incredible video. I think I'll add it into the description of the podcast. But he had this incredible video explaining how exactly Bitcoin for somebody from a sort of country that has totalitarian ways can benefit from, which is that if you looked at Bitcoin in its purest form, right? All you would need is an internet connection, your seed phrase password, and your wallet address remembered in your head, and you could go anywhere in the world and be able to move it in such a way that you can take it out. And nothing like that exists, right? All you need is your seed phrase password, your wallet address, right? And a running internet connection.
Yeah.
And that's pretty impressive. So
it is.
The highest sort of barrier to entry is education and knowledge on how to use these things, how to get onto a browser and then be able to open up your wallet and move the money around in such a way that you can then take it out in the local currency. And if at that point Bitcoin is widely adopted, then you won't even have to take it out. It reminds you of this meme that this the meme of I think Neo is asking Morpheus.
Yeah.
Do you remember the meme that I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Hold on. I think I got it here. I can show it, right?
Yeah,
I
sure.
can share my screen. I can share my screen. So it's this meme by Morpheus, and he's asking Neo, I think. Click this. Is it visible?
It is now.
I think it's slowly. So he goes, "What are you trying to tell me, that I can trade my Bitcoin for millions someday?" No, Neo, I'm trying to tell you that when you're ready, you won't have to. So in a world where Bitcoin is widely accepted in shops and so forth, it truly is like that. You won't even have to get to a browser to then use crypto, so to say. You can use crypto directly. And that's a huge selling point.
You'll still need a mechanism to do it, like be it a RFID chip, a device, a physical thing. You'll still need something to use it, but yeah.
Other than that, I mean, think about what you would need with a bank. You need your address, you need a passport, you need what else do you need? An appointment.
Yeah.
All of the stuff you won't need in crypto because the intermediary is completely taken out. So
exactly.
And especially for people in places like Africa where there's 1 billion unbanked people, in places like India where there's 1 billion unbanked people, it makes the most sense to start there. And it's actually a shame because these traditional banks don't even know that the rug is being swept under their feet, and market shares being taken by all of these different types of new asset classes. I think just to sort of the closing lines on this particular topic is that crypto has immense value in emerging markets, and one coin that I find really interesting is called Celo, and I'd really recommend. Yeah, I'd recommend people to look up Celo. Celo so it works pretty similar to Stellar. Has I don't know the specific transaction speeds and so forth, but it's pretty quick. I'd say it can compete with a lot of the other cryptos. It has investment interest by Andreessen Horowitz and stuff like that. Andreessen Horowitz obviously was part of Airbnb, Coinbase, a lot of the big name companies that you know about. So this gives Celo a lot of credibility. So Celo also, the main thing that Celo does is it allows you to use your mobile phone to store and send transactions from. So your mobile phone number, right, is then used as an address. So that's your wallet, your mobile phone number. And if anybody who's watching has ever been to Africa, if you talk to people and you sort of learn how things are done there, the reason why everybody has a mobile phone is because the mobile phone is also the bank, and it's the mobile phone number that the money is stored on. And they use services like Airtel that allow them to store local currency on their mobile phone number. And then when they need to use it, they either use SMS and send certain sums to whoever they're paying, or they call it up and then send those sums to whoever they're paying or whoever they are at a shop or wherever, right? What's interesting about Celo is that it allows you to do that with currency denominated in cryptocurrency. And it also allows you to use that sort of nifty feature of having a phone number attached to that and having that being your address. So there is huge promise in that. And what's funny is that I showed this, friends that are in the sort of crypto space and interested in it, and they're like, they're not doing anything special. I mean, the product looks good and everything, but being able to send money from your mobile phone is like, what's so special about that? And that's when I realized that it's so funny, because they don't realize that in Africa, everybody does that. It's just that we don't do it here. So, and this is what I mean. Sometimes when you look at companies, when you look at coins, you have to consider the place that is most likely to be used, and it might not be you. Some might say that this investment style is not theirs, and I would completely understand that. Because some people, they just want to invest in things that they completely understand and they can use. Like I use Spotify, so it's a foolproof investment for me. But other people that are a little bit more sort of flexible with their investment style, they can just say, hey, I've been to this place and I see how the people work there, and I think it would be a use case there, and that's why I would invest. So I guess people can just use their own judgment on what investment style fits them best. I tend to be one of those where I think people from another place using this, so therefore I'm investing, and I don't have to be using it actively myself to be convinced of that. So that's that. Moving on, I think I had something I wanted to touch on before I let you go. Was that?
I'm done. No, this is I'm done with the subject.
Okay.
I think you wanted to mention something about smart contracts, right?
Exactly. Yes. I actually wanted you to explain smart contracts just in your words to the viewers, and what you think is the utility. Because smart contracts is what primarily makes Ethereum and all of the coins like it interesting. So maybe it would just be useful for us just to touch on why smart contracts are interesting and what they mean. Yeah.
In very simple terms, smart contracts are like regular contracts, but they're encoded on a blockchain. Depending on what you want for the input and output of the smart contract to be, you can specify different parameters. So basically, if I were to hypothetically give you an amount of Ethereum, let's say when event X happens, basically we take this concept and we write it in a smart contract, which will block both of our money if if there's both of us having some money in this contract. And then once that contract is either fulfilled or it fails, or whatever you want to call it, it will get executed. So for example, if we were to make a bet, I say that, let's make it simple, Bitcoin goes to 100,000 and you say it doesn't. If that gets confirmed, you give me your part. If not, I give you my part, and then the smart contract is executed. So smart contracts are nothing but digital representations of usual contracts.
Yes. And
In a nutshell.
a contract itself being a promise that a certain action or things will be fulfilled that are in the terms on either side. So I think for people to understand, the easiest way for people to understand it is that if you give one promise, the contract is there to make sure that that promise is being fulfilled. And what's interesting about smart contracts is that, and the reason why they're called smart contracts is because the promises are filled automatically. You don't need an intermediary to then put his stamp of approval on it. So say if you were going to buy a house, and usually when you buy a house, there's a notary that is, in between you and the realtor or real estate agent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he sort of confirms this contract that was made. Mm-hmm. In smart contracts, there is no notary. The blockchain is the notary, and the blockchain takes note, and the blockchain validates the contract. So you set the terms, or when the terms are set, all of the work of the notary is already done. You can have a bit more complex smart contracts where you have certain triggers that will then cause other things in a smart contract to happen, but not to confuse anybody. But so this is just sort of high level explanation of smart contracts. Then moving on, say oracles. What is an oracle, and why is an oracle important?
So oracles, as the name suggests, they, let's say, overview something. Like, they provide information regarding a topic or a channel or a piece of information. In the sense that, for example, if let's go back to our example, if I wanted to make a bet with you that I'll give you whatever, an Ethereum when Tesla reaches $1,000, or you give me an Ethereum if it reaches $300, there's no way for us to certify this on the blockchain network. Maybe with Ethereum prices, there might be, because it's inherently the price of the blockchain. I don't know for sure, but let's just say for argument's sake that it does. But on the Ethereum network, you definitely can't know what the price of a Tesla stock is. So then an oracle would be, for example, let's just say a NASDAQ oracle, would be an oracle which overviews all the information on the NASDAQ exchange and provides information regarding it. So again, the simplest way to put it is we can fetch real life information through an oracle. Basically, oracles are the integration of the real life from outside the blockchain into the blockchain in the exact smart manner. There's no human inputting the data. It's just APIs and machines communicating with machines.
Accurate.
Yeah.
What I would add there, for example, is that oracles is sort of a third party that confirms what the first two are saying, so to say. So maybe you could think of him as a referee of sorts. You know what I mean? But the problem with smart contracts is that it's decentralized, and the whole point is that you don't need a notary. And for example, what crypto is trying to say is that you don't need a bank. All of these things can be sort of automated and set in the background and be on a blockchain and be private. and all of these things. So the Oracle is trying to do the same thing, but as a third party to confirm what is happening in a smart contract. The problem usually is that the third party, it breaks the trustlessness that you need in cryptocurrency, right? You don't want that. The need for trust between two parties also means that there is a weakness or attack vector or something that can be compromised. So what's interesting is that there's this problem is really hard to solve, and it's called the Oracle problem. You can Google it, and there's only a few projects that have managed to solve this problem in an efficient way, and also in a way that is sort of private and decentralized. And one of these is Chainlink. And Chainlink then becomes that third party that is able to confirm real world data for the smart contract. So usually you're only able to do a smart contract in a very sort of simple and straightforward way between two sort of parties. And a Chainlink would allow you to make a more interesting smart contract involving third-party real-world data. And I know you have a few things to say on Chainlink, but I would just add very briefly what I think is interesting about them is part of the reason why they're interesting is that because to solve that problem of having a third party, but that third party also being trustless and decentralized and private, part of the problem is that there's rarely any projects that have solved this. So Chainlink, having solved this, makes them one of a few. I think there's another called Augur.
Augur, yeah.
Augur.
There's a few of them. There's like 5 or 6 of them, but Chainlink is definitely the biggest one, the most known one, and stuff like that.
Exactly, and it has a lot of credibility in the industry. The founder, Sergey, don't make me pronounce his last
I don't
name.
know his last name. It's fine.
Because hold on, isn't he from the same corner as you of the world? Like some kind of
same corner.
Balkan?
He's Russian. He's Russian.
Oh, he's Russian. Okay, yeah. Okay, I won't try and pronounce his name. I won't disrespect Sergey like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he has a lot of technical know-how, and Chainlink has gained a lot of credibility in the industry. So that is also a huge plus for them, and they're building a moat pretty much, which is all kinds of products and services around Chainlink that make it harder for another project to topple them. I forgot the current market cap. Do you know it by chance?
I'll check it out while we think. No, I don't necessarily memorize market caps.
Yeah, true. Why would I?
It's,
true.
It's 9 billion.
9 billion? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was around like 12.
Well, it still has dropped since the crypto drop.
True. Yeah.
So it might have been much higher.
Yeah, so anywhere ranging between a few billion to 10, and they are decreasing their operating costs at a really rapid rate. And there's something really interesting that I just saw the news of yesterday, which is that there is, and this is where two worlds collide, and I think viewers would find this really interesting, which is the company DocuSign.
Mm-hmm.
There are rumors that DocuSign and Chainlink are having a partnership. And given that DocuSign is all about being able to remotely sort of sign documents in terms of agreements and all kinds of complex sort of contract forms by different parties, right, remotely, Chainlink becomes very interesting. because Chainlink is all about smart contracts. So being able to add Chainlink to what DocuSign is doing would be a great multiplier. So I think people should really watch the space, and I think that's a very bullish signal for Chainlink as well as DocuSign. So you could, it would be a sort of two-sided play. You could, just wait for a good entry for DocuSign, and then wait for a good entry for Chainlink. Speaking of which, I think Chainlink is an incredibly good entry right now, because all of the alts are down pretty much, with only Bitcoin, I think, holding up a little bit. So yeah, that's that on Chainlink and DocuSign on my side.
Yeah,
I might touch on some more next podcast. Yeah,
cool. What I wanted to talk about a bit about Chainlink is present a perspective. So first off, Link, the token of Chainlink, it's used to basically pay the members that provide the value. I haven't exactly researched how that works, but I would assume maybe it's per use of some sorts. But before I get there, I'll start by saying everybody can become a sort of oracle if you want to start getting into the Chainlink ecosystem. Obviously, they will need to certify you. They don't have a lot of oracles. They have like a few hundreds, I believe, right now. So basically, it's not like I'm gonna write my oracle regarding Tesla price and they'll accept it. No, probably I have to do some really complex stuff. I have to be a legitimate business and stuff like that in order for them to even consider me. And then I would apply, and they would try to verify my information, and only then would I be able to take part in the whole smart contract ecosystem. But this being said, how this works is, let's just say I am a representative of the Romanian government. I could say, okay, me, Adi, representative of the Romanian government, I will provide the Chainlink ecosystem with information regarding properties in Romania. So then we could do, obviously, hopefully nobody's going to do this, but we could do a bet on a property I would own. So, or we could do a bet whether I would or wouldn't buy a property. We could bet 10 Ethereum that I'm going to buy that property. I could bet my property. But for example, we would need Chainlink to certify that I am the owner of that property. And how the whole process goes, the reason why, for example, there's a catalyst for Link as a coin to grow is Link is being paid to the guys who certify the transaction, which actually checks the information, which would be the oracle's implementation themselves. And then when we use the Chainlink ecosystem in order to verify anything in the Chainlink ecosystem, we would have to pay with the native currency, which is obviously Link. Which means that if we want to use real life information about any oracle available on the Chainlink network, we could basically interrogate it, get some information, code our smart contracts. We would both agree on the terms, and then basically not settle, but like deposit the contract on the Ethereum blockchain. And when the conditions are met, let's say the contract would be settled. But like, this is super interesting to me. Like, if you think about the whole legal system, it's such a complicated mess, and you have like lawsuits with, for the most stupid reasons you could find. Like, for example, like, I don't know, even lawyers and the whole judicial system is, at least in Romania, it's super suffocated, because every now and then people just either sue people for the wrong reasons, or petty crimes have like 3 or 4 years in a courtroom, and that's just stupid. Like, a lot of those could be settled on the smart contract. Obviously, it's gonna take probably tens of years before we get there, but once we do get there, things would be so much clearer. Like, there would be so little need for people going inside the courtroom and arguing with each other who's correct and who's wrong. And then
the Jerry Springer show.
Yeah, then a
Literally.
judge having to decide who's wrong or who's right, because the conditions would be there from the beginning. It's kind of
Yeah,
awesome. Like
yeah,
it's the society of the future.
yeah.
So
I think it's hilarious. I mean, if you ever watch Judge Judy or something like that, and see
yeah, yeah.
what kind of a mess people turn up with at court,
Yeah.
you do imagine like a lot of this could be automated. To be honest with you.
Yeah, of course.
Because yeah, you lose brain cells sitting in some of these court cases. So yeah, Chainlink would automate a lot of this, and automation is such a often used word, but I think it's happening all around us, and the crypto space I think shows you this, and contracts are some of the worst kind, because legalese is really a different kind of language. I think they did a study sometime, and I think it was for the housing crash in America, and this study found that experts wouldn't be able to understand the contracts that were given, people of like lower class to sign and read through. So if experts are not able to read through and make sense of this, what is the average Joe going to do? So any type of improvement in the contract space will be interesting. So I have yet to see any type of solution in that area. And apologies if I'm drifting, if I'm drifting apart from what you originally said about contracts, but that was just one thing that I really needed to mention. But as far as contract automation goes, I think Chainlink is the way to go, and a lot of these court cases could just be, they could just be on a smart contract and then resolved at a much faster pace.
Especially the economical ones or the ownership ones, because there are some.
Yes.
For example, inheritance. Inheritance should be super easy to solve. Like, are you this or are you that? You get this, you get that. There's no need for court. Like, things are pretty obvious from the beginning. It's basically just people arguing they would need more on some arbitrary reason they think they have, but that's irrelevant. Like, once you codify your will or what the default legal system is, like, for example, I don't know, your children get half, your wife gets half, and that's it. That's it's done. There's no need to go to court for that. That's just overhead on the legal system for no reason whatsoever.
But this is what's so baffling about a system that has all of these processes in place, and you think this would have already happened, but instead you're really calling in people to go through these things that could just be an email. There's this meme where it's like, literally, there's this meme like, why make a meeting when it could just be an email? And a lot of these cases, just like you said, are, tops an email. And in the same way, a lot of these cases could just be contracts, simple contracts that are on a blockchain and then issued and executed when certain triggers happen. So somebody dies, trigger on the blockchain, boom, somebody died. You have the oracle confirming that this happened. Therefore, such and such get this and that amount, and so forth. So
exactly.
If
you could
this
do
happens,
fractional ownership of, for example, of properties. How amazing would that be?
Interesting, right?
Yeah,
and especially the property market needs disrupting in that area.
Affordable housing and all of that. It's absolutely tragical. Like, the prices of properties are absolutely insane. And
tell me about it. Welcome to London.
I don't want to go to London to see how that goes there. It's definitely.
We'll see. I think it's a good time to wrap it up. What do you think?
Yeah. Let's not focus on the like the negatives of the present. Let's focus on the potential of the future. And
absolutely.
that's a good way to end the discussion.
I wanted to touch on semis, but I think I'll leave that.
Yeah, we can talk about it next time, because that in itself is a super interesting subject.
Yeah. So thank you for listening, and we shall see you next week.
Yeah. Have a nice week, guys. Bye.
Peace.